America has always been a land of contradiction. The Constitution says we the people, but who did they really mean? For centuries, laws in this country have served as shields for some and weapons against others. White supremacy, white nationalism, white conservatism, they've used the law not as a tool of fairness, but as a leash to control everyone else. And when those laws are no longer useful to them, they discard them without hesitation. We're living in a time when it feels like the Constitution never existed, like we're not in the year 2025, but in 1825. We talk about the Titanic, but never the thousands of slave ships that sank, filled with black bodies, thrown overboard, some still breathing, some shackled to each other, forgotten at the bottom of the Atlantic. We talk about Pearl Harbor, but not Black Wall Street, not Rosewood, not Oscarville, not the thousands of black Americans who were lynched, burned, drowned, mutilated, and never received justice. Emmett Till's murderer died free, so did the police who murdered Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Tyree Nichols. Our blood has fed the soil, and the only thing that ever grew from it was denial.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. Well, I'm hoping that you're doing great from wherever you're watching me from. As you know, I'm your host and presenter Eugene Stories. Well, I'm hoping that you're doing great. There's something that I want us to talk about, something really important. You know, when you go to the Constitution of the United States, the first phrase is that it begins with, we the people. To mean that democratically, people are coming up with all these ideas, like it's not a centered place and everyone is represented. But this doesn't seem to be the truth with what is happening in the United States. Remember, the foundational contradiction of we the people starts within the Constitution itself. Remember, the United States Constitution opens up with the aspirational phrase, we the people, suggesting a unified body of citizens participating equally in democratic process. Yet, from its inception, this phrase masks deep exclusions. When it was written in 1787, enslaved Africans were counted as 3/5 of a person for representation but had no rights. Native Americans were regarded as separate nations, and white women were legally and politically invincible. The founding documents promoted liberty while simultaneously institutionalizing exclusion. This contradiction between democratic ideals and systemic inequality has defined the American project. What we see today, whether it's in the job, losses among white workers or healthcare disparities for black citizens, it's a continuation of that unresolved issue. Remember, usually when things are happening to the black community, it is not usually being addressed like online. For example, Texas has been going through difficulties for the past 2-3 months ago, right? The difficulty, or I'll say the crisis that I've been going through, has been caused by what is called immigration crisis, something that was imposed, something that was created by Mr. Donald Trump himself. But you see this going all along the social media, white farmers complaining about having no workers. Remember when China-USA tariff wars were happening, this also affected farmers. And when white farmers were affected, they came out complaining about all these things. But remember, black farmers have been going through this for a long time, with nobody to tell, with nobody to talk to. But again, this was not something that was taken serious because it was a black person that was trying to say. And this is just this part of the story that shows you that we the people doesn't mean really we the people. That's the contradiction and where it comes from, right? So I want us to watch this video. Really, really important. If you're watching me for the first time, you know very well that I'm your host and presenter, Eugene Stories. All I'm asking you is just please subscribe to the channel, join our membership so that we can all get to learn together. Right? If you're always supporting me through my Cash App, you're always supporting me through my super things, joining the membership, man, I'm really, really grateful because you are amongst the people that are envisioning how this channel is really grateful to the black community. And we are all learning together. So let's jump right into the video. I'll be back and then I'll be sharing my thoughts at the end of it all. Right? So let's get into it. I'll be back.
Now, let's talk about today. Concentration camps. Yes, I said it. Not detention centers. Camps. An 82-year-old man went to get his green card replaced after losing his wallet. ICE took him. He's dead now, and they don't know where he is. Deportation planes take off and come back empty. but never land where they said they were going. There are whispers of oceans of bodies thrown overboard, of entire flights disappearing. And now we have white men in full tactical gear with faces covered, grabbing people off the streets. No badge, no IDs, no Miranda rights, no due process. They are targeting dialects, skin tones, children, workers, students. This isn't a movie. This is America right now. We were told the law would protect us. Civil rights were supposed to be the great equalizer. But what happens when the law only matters if a white man is harmed? What happens when lawsuits sit on the books for years only to be thrown out by a regime that sees no value in black life? We've entered a new era, but with an old script. White America is once again reminding us, we made the laws. We don't have to follow them. It's not just hypocrisy, it's terrorism with a suit on. Sex trafficking is a billion-dollar business. And in America, once you are taken, you are often never seen again. IDs change, birth records vanish, and nobody blinks. Why? Because the missing are usually black, brown, poor, immigrant, queer, or simply inconvenient. Our system is more equipped to trace a lost Amazon package than a missing child. Ask yourself, how did we get here? But more importantly, why are we still here? Let me say this clearly before I go any further. I am not a preacher. I don't come to you as a religious authority. I come to you as a woman who was raised in the truth. I come to you as someone who's watching the Bible reveal itself right in front of our eyes. And what I see happening right now, the oppression, the cruelty, the hunger for power, the regime turning against its own people, this was already written before we ever knew it would happen, which means the ending has also already been written. And the ending is not in their favor. I've come to realize something. Our deliverance will not come from Congress, not from Democrats, not from Republicans, not even from the Constitution, because the laws that were meant to protect us were never meant for us. The only thing keeping us alive right now is God. The same God they try to erase, the same higher power they mock, reduce to science, or try to replace with greed and power. But the scriptures say, the one who made the ear, can he not hear? The one who formed the eye, can he not see? Psalms 94, verse 9, New World Translation 2013. He's watching, and he will repay. Let me say this plainly. The very laws white supremacy created will be the same laws that destroy them. He will make their own violence return upon them. He will destroy them by their own evil. Jehovah our God will silence them. Psalms 94, verse 23, New World Translation 2013. They are building a system that will be their own demise. A regime so greedy, so wicked, so obsessed with dominance that it cannot sustain itself. Everything they are doing now, especially with the things like the One Big Beautiful Bill, is designed to take from the poor and line the pockets of billionaires. They are stripping healthcare, housing, education, and rights away, while giving the elite more power. But even this was foretold. Their silver will be thrown into the streets, and their gold will become abhorrent. Their silver and their gold will not be able to save them on the day of Jehovah's fury. Ezekiel 7, verse 19, New World Translation 2013. The money they worship will be worthless. The systems they trust will collapse. The men they follow will be judged. I know it feels hopeless. I know it looks terrifying. But the moment you realize that what's happening now is already predicted is the moment you regain your peace. Because no matter what it looks like now, the outcome is not in their hands. They are writing laws with cruelty, but those laws would trap them. They are creating surveillance to monitor the people, but those same cameras will expose them. They are building a fortress, but it's made of sand, because in the end, white supremacy is writing a check that even white America won't be able to cash. And I pray we live enough or long enough to see it happen.
Holy shit, they call it the law of the land, but the truth is the Constitution was never meant for all of us. The people who wrote it owned humans, raped women, beat children, and called it liberty. That's what we're told to worship. Blood-stained rules written by kings without crowns. And just like the Bible, it's been twisted, cherry-picked, and weaponized to justify the worst horrors this country has ever committed. You think the government actually cares about the Constitution? They don't even pretend anymore. Presidents ignore checks, police ignore rights, courts bend reality to fit the agenda of whoever's in power. One day it's freedom of speech. Next day, protesters are choked out in the street. One day, it's due process. Next day, drones kill American citizens without trial. The parchment only matters when it protects property, not people. They don't follow the rules. They use them as a muzzle. And the people, they parrot amendments like they're scripture, quoting the Second Amendment like gospel, ignoring the massacres piling up in its name, screaming about the first while cheering the arrests of journalists. They interpret the Constitution the same way they interpret the Bible, selectively, hypocritically, and always in defense of power. Never in defense of the poor, or the queer, or the trans women, or the migrant father, or the black mother. Both texts are treated like holy relics, but neither has ever protected the most vulnerable. The Constitution enshrined slavery, erased indigenous nations, and locked women out. The Bible was used to justify it. Manifest destiny was not just conquest, it was scripture and statute walking hand in hand over the bones of the colonized. And even now, we're watching the government shred its own doctrine. Supreme Court justices who claim original intent while gutting civil rights. Congress writes laws that starve kids and jail the poor while quoting Jefferson. Presidents invoke executive authority to bypass every safeguard. If it is sacred, why do they treat it like scrap? It is a lie. It always has been. The Constitution is not freedom, it is a cage, written to protect wealth, maintain hierarchy, and pacify revolt. Just like the Bible has been used to silence dissent, the Constitution is used to criminalize survival. They don't believe in it. They believe in power, and power doesn't need truth, just tradition, repeated loud enough to drown out the bodies. Burn the myth. Tear up the scripture. Stop pretending justice lives in documents written by tyrants. Our freedom won't be found in old ink or ancient verses. It will be built from the ground up by the people the Constitution was written to control. They've got you believing genocide is just governance in motion. That is the con. Here lies the sickness. Neoliberalism is not reality. It is a chosen belief system meticulously engineered, enforced through debt, violence, and despair. Marketed like gravity, paraded as truth, wrapped in academic gloss and bipartisan applause. Still, this machine was built to serve the few, and it demands bodies to keep it humming. People speak like this is the edge of possibility. It's complicated, they mutter. We've got to be realistic. No, that's the logic of someone who's been broken by repetition and told the bruises are democracy. Trauma gets repackaged as discipline. Pain gets rebranded as maturity. After years of political gaslighting, folks start mistaking the cage for a cradle. What neoliberalism thrives on is your despair. Exhaustion is its oxygen. Apathy is its armor, because the second people start imagining something else, when they dare to build without permission, the empire begins to fracture. Hope, not fear, is what terrifies it most. This isn't a failing system, it is a predatory one. The prison industrial complex was not born from crime waves. It was designed to warehouse poverty and profit from suffering. Over 2 million people remain caged across the United States as of this year. Most are working class people. A vast majority of black, brown, disabled, queer, and trans disposable by policy. Simultaneously, the war machine accelerates. Over $900 billion was funneled into the Pentagon this year. At least 750 military bases dot the globe. More than 80 countries host U.S. forces. This is not protection. It is conquest in a uniform. It is extraction enforced by missiles. Democrats pantomime compassion while underwriting carnage. They dress violence in inclusion language and sell it as progress. One hand waves the rainbow flag while the other signs off on drone strikes. They'll post solidarity hashtags for Gaza, then vote to fund the bombs that level its neighborhoods. That is not justice. It is complicity in a prettier package. You won't reach socialism by marching through a capitalist pipeline. Elevating a communist within a neoliberal framework doesn't disrupt the machine, it guts them, it neuters them. What begins as resistance ends in paperwork. Revolutionaries get forced to smile through genocide and call it governance. This country does not simply stumble, it dominates by design. Internally, it criminalizes hunger. Globally, it topples governments, installs loyalists, and plunders land. And somehow, you're still asking if a few tweaks around the edges might be enough? Each time you sigh and say, maybe this is just how it is, you breathe life into the system. That is not realism, it is resignation. You sound like someone who's been convinced survival is all they're worth. Escaping that belief requires radical vision. Dreaming becomes defiance. It demands the courage to believe that another world is not just theoretical, it's already being built in the shadows of empire by hands they try to disappear. Comfort will not shield you. Silence won't protect your neighbor. Stability purchased with blood is not stability, it is sanctioned brutality. You were not born to be controlled. Compliance was never your purpose. No one was meant to be manageable. You were made to light the whole lie on fire and build something living in the ashes.
Trump has impacted every part of my life. There's a reason why you haven't heard me talk about it as much recently. Because it gets to a point where you have to take a step back, and I want to talk a little bit about it without sharing too many details because your girl is still private. The administration has deeply impacted my quality of sleep and quantity of it as well. I wear an Apple Watch every night for months now to track my sleep. There's a noticeable deep decline in quantity and quality after November 5th. It's not really hard to figure out why. So all those people that come on here and see me making these like my night zoomy videos and are like, do you ever sleep? No, not really. TBH. I'm working on it, but you know, things are a little rough right now. There's also the social weight of all of this as well, especially as someone that is a part of multiple marginalized communities and have communities that also are a part of those communities as well, because there are certain people that are able to key in and key out of what is happening at a national level more than others. So depending on your level of privilege, you are able to distance yourself from it in a varying ways. I myself am able to probably distance myself more so from it than someone that's Mexican American, because I'm not currently worried about ICE impacting me directly. That being said, though, I do have people in my community that are, which is a whole nother thing. But that has been a big thing, too, because it's like, because of the way that this country operates, we still have to work and do life, even as all of this is happening, which is hard, especially when the weight of all of this is going to be disproportionate depending on who you are. He's greatly impacted my work in many different ways. He's impacted my student loans. That's something that I have quite a bit of, and he has made it significantly harder to deal with that. He's impacted me medically, which I won't be getting into, but it is a thing, and community-wise as well, because like I said, I have Mexican-American people and people in general that are being targeted by ICE in my life that I worry for quite a bit because of what is happening right now. And that's not even to mention the issues with job security that they're having and a whole bunch of other stuff because of the industries that they operate in, and which even goes to my family, because my family, I have a lot of family that works in the government and the military. They're definitely being impacted by all of this. And then I have the older people in my family as well that are like on pins and needles about Social Security. Like, there's so many ways that he's impacting a lot of us. I'm very aware. But me particularly, that just has become overwhelming. And it gets to a point where I'm like, I have to get through the next 4 years. Like, I have to. And sitting and lamenting over the last year and the fact that we're in this position isn't really helping me at this point, because this is the reality that we're in right now. So I've been trying to focus on the things that I can control. So like I said a few weeks ago, that is how I deal with all of this. I focus on the things I can actually have impact on. So I may not be able to impact the way that ICE is directly profiling people and deporting them in some of the most horrendous ways, but I can at least talk to my community and see how we can counteract some of that, or how we can build networks around them to keep them safe. I really try my best to focus on those things, because it is depressing if you don't. So I know that I'm not the only one that's being greatly impacted by all of this, but I just want to say that this is real, what is happening right now. And I'm doing everything I can to take care of myself and those around me in the midst of all of it. But yeah. Oh, and a big one. Information has been particularly difficult for me to wrap my head around. I know for years people have been saying fake media. Why is no one talking about this? There's been a huge question of media and its validity, but I've never really fully subscribed to that. I'm not saying there aren't media that have not been the best or credible. Obviously, that's a thing. But holistically, as someone that works in PR, I felt pretty confident about media and what the information that they provide, the reporting and things like that. Because of this administration, this is the first time I've actually questioned it. And it's not because of the reporters themselves, it's just the ability for them to report on things at all. It's access to information that's really concerning me right now. And I've seen directly how difficult it is to get information on certain topics now. And that's extremely concerning to me. And you're talking to someone that literally works in communications, directly works with media. This is not something that is completely foreign to me, and I'm just strictly looking at as someone that consumes media. So there are journalists that are doing really great work right now, and I think it's so important to support them because they're under a lot of pressure right now. I just really encourage people to keep in mind that the issues here are the companies that they're operating under, not the journalists themselves. So we got to get through the next 4 years, y'all. So I don't really have many truthfully positive things to say after all of this. I mainly came on here to say this because I wanted to make sure it was communicated that this has direct impact and it's not just this theoretical thing. And it is impacting me and many other people in a very deep and resonant way, and it is difficult right now. But also, I don't believe he has a vein condition, personally. So I might be able to whip out the cowbell soon. Who knows?
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. Well, I'm hoping that you're doing great from wherever you're watching me from. As I said earlier, you know very well you've been watching my videos. I'm your host and presenter Eugene Stories. Now this is the catch. When we say we are the people, does that really mean what the United States usually mean when it comes to we the people? Because we have seen black people go through a lot of problems. But again, we the people, it's something that it's inclusionary, like everybody. But does everyone benefit from all these government services that the United States offers? I'll say no. Why? Because of economic disparity and racialized narrative. Remember, the contemporary claim that white people are losing jobs to black people. This reflects both economic anxiety and a racialized scapegoating mechanism. Right? Historically, remember that the elites have stoked racial fears among poor working class whites and divide what is called labor solidarity. As automation, globalization, and corporate consolidation displaces workers, and by the way, this is something that is happening, it becomes politically convenient to redirect the blame onto the black or immigrant communities. However, the truth is here. The truth is more structural. Right? Both black and white working class communities are being dispossessed by neoliberal policies that prioritize profit over people. The system isn't favoring black people over whites. Rather, it's failing the majority while exploiting perception of racial favoritism to prevent unified resistance. So you know very well that this is something, that has been going on. And I think at this time, we all need to understand this. Another thing that I want to talk about is the myth of black advancement as white expense. Something that has been going on for a long time. Remember, the perception that black Americans are now prioritized in employment or emergency care is a distortion often fueled by right-wing media and selective anecdotal evidence. Statistically, black unemployment rates consistently remain higher than those of whites, and that's the truth. Right? Black communities are disproportionately represented in essential, low-wage jobs with little job security or benefits. When black people gain marginal access to opportunities or basic services, it is framed not as a progress towards equity, but as an enroachment on white entitlements. This is a reveal of a deeper psychological problem in a society that is shaped by racial hierarchy. Equality for black people can feel like loss for white people, even when that perception is not guaranteed in material reality. And that's just how the truth really goes. And I think it's really important for us to come on and have this whole great discussion that we need to talk about, right? Also, another thing that shows you that there is a contradictory in the statement, we the people, is health disparities and structural racism. You know very well that this is something that has been going on very damn well. The idea that white patients are being pushed aside in healthcare setting to favor black patients lack credible empirical support and reverses much longer a well-documented trend of a systemic medical racism. Numerous studies, including those of the CDC and the National Institute of Health, shows that black American experience are worse outcomes across virtually all healthcare indicators. Higher rates of maternal mortality, untreated chronic illness, and denial of adequate pain medication. The COVID-19 pandemic laid bare these inequalities, with black communities suffering disproportionate infection and death rates. Any apparent prioritization today often stems from targeted interventions to address historic neglect, not preferential treatment. Right? So let's just that sink. And I think it's important that we're having all these discussions. Another thing that I'd like to address or talk about is neoliberalism, austerity, and manufactured scarcity. And this is happening right now, and I think everyone can see this. The deeper issue at play is the shrinking of the public sphere under the neoliberalism. Since the 1980s, both major political parties in the US have embraced policies that slash public spending on healthcare, education, and and welfare. The emergency rooms are overcrowded and social services fail. It is not due to too many black recipients, but due to deliberate underfunding. The competition between racial groups for limited resources is manufactured scarcity, a political choice rather than a natural consequence. The state has the capacity to serve all equitable, but its priorities often lie in military spending, corporate subsidies, and tax breaks for the wealth. Right. So the problem that you're seeing being caused, it's an imposed problem. And it has always been for the few people, but let the majority of people hurt, or let the majority of people go through difficulties, but let a lot of people, a lot of poor people go through suffering, but the poor, not the poor, but the few rich people enjoy all these benefits without even caring about the majority of the 90% that are remaining. Now, talking about historical amnesia and racial amnesia, part of the problem is historical amnesia. Many white Americans are not taught the full scope of American racial history, which includes not only slavery, but also redlining, Jim Crow laws, and mass incarceration. This ignorance fosters a sense of entitlement and victimhood when systems begin. However, imperfectly to correct for the past harms, the idea that equality is oppression or that diversity initiates amounts to reverse racism is a reflection of how deeply racial privilege has been normalized. Equity feels unfamiliar and unfair only because the default has long been inequity in favor of whiteness. Right. Now, I'm also going to be addressing the role of white working class in perpetuating the system. While white working class Americans are also suffering through job loss, addiction crisis, and the mental health issues, they have often been mobilized politically, not against the capital elite, but against imagined and deserving minorities. This is a tragic repetition of history. Remember, during the Reconstruction, during the New Deal, and during the Civil Rights era, poor white Americans were repeatedly offered the psychological wage of racial superiority rather than material improvements. And today, when black people demand dignity and access, some whites perceive this not as shared liberation, but as a zero-sum threat to their own precarious positions. Also, I'd like to talk about policing and carceral inequality. Another area of contradiction is the criminal justice system. Remember, while it's true that poverty-related crimes are on the rise in all communities, not just black, the response remains racially unequal. Black Americans are far more likely to be arrested, charged harshly, and imprisoned for the same offenses as white people. The carceral state, built on legacy of slavery and Jim Crow, still functions as a mechanism of social control, which disproportionately targets black bodies. Yet the system also increasingly targets poor white people, especially in rural America, as policies becoming a tool for managing economic decline. The system failure is not just racial, but a class-based, even though its racial roots remain dominant. I would like also to address the weaponization of white grievance. Political leaders, particularly those aligned with Trumpist populism, have weaponized white grievance, portraying any progress for non-white Americans as an attack to real Americans. The rhetoric recasts white loss, whether real or perceived. Our racial victimhood, it is a powerful political tool because it obscures the actual mechanism of dispossession. Corporate offshoring, wage stagnation, and the gutting of public programs. By scapegoating black and brown people, elites deflect accountability and prevent cross-racial coalitions that could challenge the status quo. Right. Talking about the moral crisis of American democracy. America faces a moral crisis, and it can be Can it become what it has always claimed to be? The contradiction between we the people and the lived realities of inequality, right? Which is no longer sustainable. The language of equality must be matched with the structural changes, universal healthcare, fair housing, education reforms, and labor protections that uplift all, especially those historically marginalized. This requires an honest reckoning with the country's racial past and rejection of the myths that pits poor white against poor black people. Without that, democracy remains a hollow slogan rather than a living deal. Right? So I really want to know what you feel about this. As you know, I'm your host and presenter, Eugene Stories. Just let me know what you feel about this. For those who are watching us for the first time again, I'm going to be reminding you, please subscribe to the channel, join our membership, and really get so we can offer you. But until then, let me see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.